Welcome to the Inspired Riding Podcast. I'm your host, Beth Lauren Parrish. As a certified riding instructor, remote coach, and rapid transformational therapy practitioner, a powerful form of hypnotherapy, I'm here to remind you to slow down, trust your intuition, and really deeply listen to your horse. And this will make for the best co-creative dances possible, whether you're on the ground or connecting on their backs. Thank you so much for being here, and here we go. Hello there, Inspired Riders. In this podcast, I'm going to be interviewing Jen Symms of Pegasus Physio. With nearly 20 years experience as a human physio and 10 as an equine physio, Jen feels passionate about helping riders be the best they can be for themselves and for their horses. She aims to help riders understand how important they are as a part of the horse-rider partnership, and that improving physically helps both parties. Investing in their own bodies means the horse benefits greatly, and the rider often gets more enjoyment and success as they work on themselves off the horse. She says we should be thinking of riders as equestrian athletes, no matter what the level. And even making small changes can make big differences. I'm thrilled to be speaking with her now, and here we go. Okay, welcome, Jen. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I'd love to know, what specifically do you do to help riders, and what do you love about it?
So I'm a rider physio, and that kind of means I can help riders in so many different ways. I have people coming from kind of quite significant injuries, so they want to get back on the simulator before they get back riding. I had one young girl who basically had a car accident and shattered her lower leg, and she was non-weight bearing for a while. She was partial weight bearing, and so we were actually able to get her back on the simulator months before we could get her on a real horse, and actually that really helped her walking when we got her back. At the other end of the scale, I've got kind of performance riders, so eventers or dressage riders who want to be better. So they come, we assess them on the simulator normally, and we work out what's going on, if they're having problems, and how we can achieve it. So it's basically anything from post-injury, post-surgery, people with pain or injuries, all the way to kind of performance issues. And that's why I love it, because every rider's different, every goals, every treatment, every exercise that we do are different and tailored to the rider.
Oh, that is absolutely brilliant. And I so wish I had that in my recovery. I've had several accidents and surgeries, and I now have metal plate in my leg and my knee and my arm. And
yeah,
I was so lucky to find an equestrian physio out here in the States. So she went really slowly with me and was actually there the day I finally got to sit in the saddle. But
yeah,
getting to ride before you're even able to fully walk, that's an incredible service that you can do. I love that.
Yeah. And simulators are used quite a lot in the UK for disabled riders for that reason. They kind of get disabled riders hoisted onto the simulator, and they can kind of go for a hack using the software. And that's not something necessarily I do, but we always think of riding as kind of being for able-bodied, and actually it doesn't have to be with the simulator at all.
Was there a big learning curve to figuring out the simulator and how to help riders on it?
Yeah, massively. And it's probably changed my practice a lot and how I think about things. So I've treated riders for years, and you look at them and you think, I think they're putting more weight through the left because that's what it looks like. And when I started using the simulators, so the simulators have basically got sensors at the front and back of the saddle and on either side, as well as leg sensors and rein sensors. And what that tells me is actually where their weight is, and it is not always where I think it is. You can look at someone and think, oh, it really looks like they're putting all the weight through their right side, but then the sensor's telling you they're not. And okay, we can't just rely on the sensors. That is objective data, but we have to then actually look at the videos of the rider as well, or photos. But it doesn't then make sense to think, well, actually what they're doing is pushing their weight into the left, which then makes it look like they're to the right. So you can't just rely on what you see. You've got that extra information. And if they are to the right, you then have to try and work out why it is. And then when you then start to make changes, whether it be treatment or exercises, either off horse or on the simulator, you can see that data start to change, and that's what's so amazing about it. So yeah, it's massively changed how I think about that. We all know things like pelvic control is really important in riders, But again, I get someone on the simulator and you should be able to kind of see a left-right movement with the horse's movement. And some people like flatline, which tells me that they're just gripping and they're not moving at all in the saddle. Other people are massively to one side, or it's not very smooth curve. So we get that information that you just couldn't get without seeing that.
That's incredible. I love that you get that immediate feedback there.
Yeah. And so when I get someone on the simulator, they've got all this information in front of the screen. The hardest thing is to say, don't look at the red dot, don't look at the squiggles and the lines. Just try not to look at that. And I suppose I should turn the TV screen off at times, but I see the information as well. But yeah, it's just so interesting. And I probably had underestimated that left-right movement for walk and trot and for the canter, that forward and back. And that's what I use as a training aid so much, is for people to try and get that pelvic loose and moving, so they do free up the horse. And what's so nice is when people have had a session and you then get a text message going, oh my God, my horse was so much freer straight away. Like we normally kind of get a good warm up and then we kind of get a chilled walk, but we had a chilled walk straight away. So all of a sudden they've taken the handbrake off, they've taken the brake off, they're just going with the horse rather than fighting. Or what a lot of people do is they get on and kind of want to do the movement themselves. They want to move the horse. I want to do a walk or a trot, rather than just sitting there and letting the horse do the movement and you go with it. Because if you've got that neutral movement, you can then increase the movement if you want to kind of increase the speed, or you can then shorten the movement that you're doing, kind of, I say tense, I don't mean tense, but kind of control what you're doing, and that helps absorb that movement, and it doesn't necessarily shift your centre of gravity much. And it's just so interesting to kind of to get riders doing that and seeing the results on their horses afterwards.
That must be so rewarding. And it's so...
Oh, it really is.
It's so interesting that you mentioned about like trying to help the horse. The very one time I got to sit on the simulator, I believe it was, I want to say like 2003. It was at an equine affair in California. And as soon as I sat on this simulator, the woman looks at me and she says, what kind of warm blood do you have? And I'm like, are you serious? She goes, yeah, you're pushing way too much. Like, that's what I did, because I'm only 5 feet and my horse at the time was 16.3. And he was a lot of horse for me. And I just felt like I had to like really like do a lot.
Put the energy and get the energy to go.
It was
I just think
amazing.
We confuse horses. We confuse them. We get on their back and we're like, right, we want to go for a walk. And the horse goes, okay, I'll go with you. You go, oh no, you're going too fast. I don't want to go that fast. So we then maybe tense up slightly, or we use our rein slightly, and the horse goes, what are you doing? And then we get a head shake from them, or a little bit of resistance, or they don't want to go into that bend because they go, what are you asking me to do? Yeah. Or we're massively one-sided and kind of going, well, we're telling the horse on that right rein to fall out through its shoulder, and blaming the horse for doing something that actually we're kind of causing. And I think we forget that as riders, that we're so important as that part of that partnership. And that's one of the biggest things I try and promote with kind of my social media and my business, is that looking after yourself is just as important for the horse as it is for you, because, as you know, riders aren't often bothered about themselves, they're just bothered about the horse. And physio is never a high priority for riders. They'll have bad injuries, they'll have bad pain, and they'll just get on with it. And it's almost like kind of a hero badge that they wear, like, oh, I've got a really bad back, but, you know, I still carry on riding. And I'm like, dude, that's not cool, because that means that you're going to affect your horse's back, and you're kind of wearing it as a badge of honour, and you're not helping your horse. Spend the money on yourself, get yourself better, rather than buying a fancy new saddle pad or a new rug.
Exactly. And that's what I've been doing most of my life with teaching, is reminding them they have to treat themselves like athletes, and they have, besides taking care of course their body, they have to focus on their emotions and their mental state. I'm wondering how much shifts in their confidence after they've worked with you.
So I'll kind of give you, when I first started using it myself, so I'd had a spinal fracture about 2.5 years ago. So I'd been off riding for a year. I was getting married and thought I just don't really want to risk getting back on.
Right.
I'd done a few sessions, but then I gradually got back into it, was getting my confidence back. And on the simulator, the one we use, or I use quite a lot, is the Eventer one, so it can jump. And so what actually ended up happening was I did the show jumping course, and then I was like sweaty and anxious and red, and I hadn't been breathing, and I got off the simulator and I was literally shaky and wobbly.
Oh my gosh.
And at no one point did I feel unsafe. At no one point did I think, actually, I'm going to fall off, I'm in danger. Like, mentally I knew I was in a safe place, but that didn't stop that physical reaction from happening. That's probably what's the most interesting thing for me, because, as I said, physically I could do it. I didn't feel unsafe. But mentally, seeing those jumps in front of me, I was like, wow, I am not ready to get back on a horse, because if this is how I'm feeling, what am I going to transfer to the horse?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's a great one when people have had injuries to kind of get that nervousness and kind of gradual return. Because that's what we do in any sport. So I've worked in professional football and rugby. And before you get them back in that contact sport, you do so many drills, each time incrementally increasing what we do. So it might start that the contact is just touching them slowly, and then you gradually build up to a full contact, and then with another person, then two people, and all of a sudden they go back to training, and then it's contact training, and then it's a game. Like, there's so many steps before they get back. And as riders, we don't really have that opportunity. Yeah, okay, we can get back on and go for a hack or a walk, but there's no way to kind of gradually increase that load mentally that or physically that we have in other sports, and that's what the simulator is so good for.
I love that you were able to recognize that in yourself and go, okay, I need some more time on this before I actually ride.
Yeah, and even still now when I'm jumping, I've got back to it, but I still kind of have to have sessions on the simulator to kind of go, I need to go back to feeling rather than anticipating, because that's what I find a lot with the jumping, is that people anticipate jumps.
Right.
They come up and they kind of go, I'm going to jump now. You're going to go, whoa, the horse hasn't gone yet. And you see it on their videos when they show you before the session. But on the simulator, it doesn't go forward. So if you go forward, you then feel quite unbalanced. So it's a great way of highlighting to people how what you're doing is actually unbalancing yourself, and the horse underneath is having to kind of catch you up. So yeah, the jumping simulator is brilliant for that, and I often have to go back to it kind of to trust what my body needs to feel and do, rather than what my brain's saying is, right, we're coming up to a jump, I need to get tense and get ready to jump. So it's a great way to reset it for myself personally.
I love that. And I'm curious, do you use any type of visualization before they actually do the jump on the simulator?
No, not probably really. All I want to do is I start kind of very low levels. We've got different levels of grid work we can do. So there's kind of a beginner and an intermediate, and each level there's 3 different sizes of jumps. So the beginner jumps, we're really kind of starting with maybe a slightly raised cross pole going to about 40-50 centimetres. So for me at that point on the simulator, you shouldn't be needing to do much apart from just sit to the canter.
Right.
So it's a great way I do with people that maybe struggle with the canter or with anxiety or confidence issues, especially younger riders, is to get them doing their grid work and go, but your canter's fine, isn't it? Like you're moving with the horse. When the horse moves, you go with it. You're not unbalanced. The intermediate level is then looking at kind of higher jumps. And yeah, you need to start kind of doing a little bit more, but you can still do it with no reins and no stirrups and not worry too much about it. So it's a great way of kind of introducing the jumping stuff. But no, I don't really do the visualization. I just want to get them, first of all, I'm a bit cruel. I get them doing what they're doing naturally, and I video them and I show them where their problems potentially are coming from, which, yeah, is a bit cruel, but that's what they're coming for. They're not coming to kind of for anything else. They want to get to the nitty-gritty of the problems.
That's how you
learn. And then once we've done that, we've then talked about what's going on, and when we go back to work on it, I'm probably talking more physical. Yeah, there's some visualization, and to be fair, that's not something maybe I'm great at as a physio. Probably a bit more practical, a bit more visual, hands-on. So that visualization I sometimes struggle with. That's not how I learn, but I'm trying to get better with teaching it. But no, I probably use more feedback from photos and videos and the screen and how they're feeling rather than say visualization.
Yeah, that's awesome. But no, everyone does different ways to help people, and I absolutely love that you have these different levels. I didn't realize that that was a possibility for the jumps as well. And I always like to say canter is an elevated I'm sorry, a jump is an elevated canter stride. Yes.
Yeah. And obviously it's just flat work over jumps, or jumping is dressage over jumps. And that's what I find people struggle with most, especially at like lower levels. But the higher up you get, I think less so, because I think you probably learn by experience. If you do go too far early, then you will come off, or the horse won't jump well. But I get kind of a lot of lower level kind of eventers that are, clipping a couple of poles, nothing drastic. And then you look at the video and you're like, you're not getting that smooth canter. You're thinking about it too much. You're trying to ride too hard or not enough. So that's where the simulator is great for kind of getting that feeling. It should just feel like this. And I've got quite a few riders I then work with on their real horse. And, some they go, well, I don't want to do canter poles. My horse isn't very good at canter poles. They can do it. If they can jump 80 centimetres, they can do some canter poles or cross poles or cavalettis. But you're not wanting to because you haven't got that canter rhythm, and that's exactly what you need to get to then progress at the levels and get better scores. and it's much kinder for the horse as well.
Absolutely. Having the adjustable canter is key to being able to ride a course well. So, yeah. I am very impressed with all of this. So I just want to say that out loud. This is very cool. Do you have any transformation stories about a specific student that comes to mind that you want to share?
So I had one yesterday that was a youngish girl, and her mum came in and said, well, I always kind of say, what do you want to work on? And some people are quite specific, and lots of people now come to me and say, everything, like start from the beginning, I want to know everything. But this mum walked in, and she's kind of a young teenager, and said she's been constantly told in her lessons to put her heels down, but she's autistic and she's a toe walker. So that means that they reckon because of sensory issues, she doesn't want to put her heels down, so she's toe walking, has done since a child, has had loads of physio input over the years, and they reckon that that's just going to be the way she does it. But her instructors are forever telling her to put her heels down. And she said, I've seen quite a lot of your videos how you're not, that's not the main thing you look at, is being heels down. So we just wanted to come and have a look and see what you thought. Obviously, you're a physio, so you can assess kind of her ankles a bit more in detail than other people. So we got her on, and actually, the heels weren't that bad at all. They were okay position, especially given that she doesn't potentially have the same range of movement. And as soon as I kind of not gave her permission, but kind of like, don't worry about your heels. Like next time your instructor tells you, explain that you've seen a physio, you haven't got the ankle range of movement. Like your heels aren't ever going to be as far down as people want them to be, but that doesn't mean you can't be a good rider. And that was fun. The amazing, she just kind of like sighed this relief, like, oh, okay, I can still ride. And then the next thing was, and I find it a lot with young riders, is we assume that young riders know what we're talking about. As an adult, we've got so many life experiences that when I describe something to you or tell you to do something, you go, oh yeah, I know what you mean because I've heard it before, I've seen something, but we forget that young riders don't have that kind of knowledge library ready to go. And so she was sitting in anterior tilt and she was quite tense, and one of the main things she does is get anxious and nervous and tilts forward and tips forward, and it all kind of goes into that vicious cycle. Horse goes quicker, she gets more nervous. But physically she was doing really well. And all it took was me to actually put her in the right position. For someone that was kind of needed that sensory input. And then getting her moving. And not once during the next hour did I need to tell her about her position. Because she felt the difference. She went, oh, if I'm in that position, that's the wrong one. You've put me here and I can feel I'm more balanced. I can feel I'm more stable. And I didn't have to tell her again. And I just thought, I found it quite sad that she got kind of years of riding and all it took was for someone to actually break it down and make her feel what she should be feeling. And what was really interesting is she could then see she wasn't breathing, she was getting quite anxious if we changed the speeds. And her mum was chatting to us as well, and we were saying about, maybe sing a song. She didn't want to sing a song. She likes listening to music, so we got a Lana Del Rey song on my iPhone, so she was listening to that. Just listen to the song. And that, again, made a big difference to her. She could focus on something else rather than focusing on kind of what was happening with her riding. So again, we kind of came a couple of different ideas that when she can go for her lessons, maybe she has a bit of an iPod in her ear, maybe she just listens to some music in the very low background, just as a slight distraction. We then actually got her walking, and again, I said, let's just have a look and see. Because she followed instructions so well on the simulator, she was able to, if I changed something, she could feel it. And she was able to then reproduce it. So let's have a go at her walking. And actually, yeah, we got her walking much better because she went, no one's ever explained that to me.
Oh.
And they've seen loads of people. And again, it was just like, we sometimes forget that we've got to make sure that person that we're explaining things to understands and has the physical capability. Now, that's quite an extreme one. But she's so happy because she now knows that she doesn't need to be perfect to ride, that her heels being down isn't the most important thing in the world. She's now got a coping strategy that if she gets a bit nervous, that having a song to listen to will just make her focus on something else. And physically, she does get anxious when the horse goes faster. So I pushed her in the comfort zone. I'd made her close her eyes. We changed the speed. And the first time we did it, you'd see her face kind of literally scrunch up like that was horrible. And, oh, actually, that was okay. So by extending that comfort zone, we even got her jumping by the end, just doing the grid work. She now felt a bit more confident that when she goes back to her lessons, she can do it. And it was such an eye-opener for me. Because that wasn't really, obviously it was a physio session, but it wasn't really, I wasn't doing anything. It was just explaining things in a different way, using anatomy or different exercise to show her how well something worked. And that was pretty cool.
That is gorgeous. I love that. And what a beautiful reminder to everyone who's out there teaching just break it down in the most simple terms you can. And if you can, just physically move them in the way they need to be. I think that's so important.
But I even get kind of adult novice riders, and I'll be like, sort of about seat bones. And they're like, well, I don't really know what my seat bones are. And I'm like, that's fine, let's go through it. That's absolutely fine. So we talk about the anatomy, we get them off the horse, we get them sitting on a hard surface, we go through it and why it makes a difference. We talk about what being tilted forward versus tilted back. And when they understand something, it makes sense. The other one is put your leg on. Now, I learned to ride as a child, so I kind of know what it means. But if you're learning as an adult, you don't know what it means. Which muscles do I use, which movements? So actually kind of going, well, this is the movement, this is the exercise, this is what we want you to try and do. And they go, oh, I've never done that before. So it's no wonder they're losing their stirrup all the time on that canter transition because the heel's coming up because they think that's what they should be doing. So the simple things can make the biggest differences.
Absolutely. Just those little changes. I love that. And so you also have videos to help explain this. Is that right?
Yeah. So what I do is every person is videos them from the side and behind on the simulator. Walk, trot, canter, jumping, whatever we're doing, whatever exercise we do, whatever I talk about with them, it gets videoed. We do an exercise on the floor, it gets videoed. So when they go home, they get all of that information sent to them. Because I'm a big fan of, at the time, yes, it makes sense, but we all know we've gone home from somewhere and gone, what was it they said?
Exactly.
What did they mean?
Yeah.
Whereas if they've got that photo or video evidence, they've got me talking like we did in the session, or, I'll say to them, this is what I want you to do. What are you feeling? What are you thinking? And I'll video them talking through how they correct their position or what they're doing in the exercise. So they've got that feedback of they know how to kind of try to reproduce it.
I love that. And that's actually what I do with my remote lessons. We record them so that way they can go back and watch and then ask me questions later as they process more. So I love that you do that. And so you also have a video library that's available worldwide. Is that right?
Yes, that kind of started when I started doing more of the promotion on social media for the simulator and rider physio sessions. I got people like messaging from all over the world saying, do you travel? Oh, I'd love to travel to Australia and America, but I'm not sure my budget can quite match that yet. They're like, I like the way you explain things or how you break things down. Would you be able to do remote consultations? And whilst, yes, I probably could do remote coaching, that isn't necessarily what I wanted it to be because that's kind of like one session and then you then got to kind of reevaluate them again and redo more exercises. It's quite, not labour intensive, but it's quite financially a lot for people if you're doing that. So what I wanted to do instead was create a video library of tutorials. So things that I talk about in my sessions, whether it's what might cause asymmetry in the saddle, what might cause you to lose your stirrup, lower leg instability, the movement that we need. I try and kind of not debunk, but common phrases that we use. So when people say sit up straight, what do they mean and how can it go wrong? As well as then having exercises for different categories of like an anterior tilt, posterior tilt, leg strengthening, asymmetry or imbalances, and then trying to get more and more videos covering injuries. So if someone has a lower back pain, they know when to seek medical advice, because one of the big things I've done as a job over the last however many years of being qualified is working in like a general practice. So you'd see me or speak to me rather than seeing a doctor. I do a full assessment, refer for blood tests or x-rays or scans, and try and do the medical management. And it scares me how many riders walk around with symptoms that probably need investigating. And again, it's this laissez-faire attitude of, oh, it's fine, I just can't feel my leg at times. And yeah, that's not necessarily a worrying symptom, but it's making sure people know something about called red flags. So the things that we need to make sure that nothing sinister or serious is going on. So it's kind of getting that point across of, if you can self-manage it, this is how you self-manage it best. These are the exercises to start doing, but these are the symptoms that if you're struggling, this is when you need to go and speak to someone or see someone. So it's kind of trying to get that managing from everyone. And then what I also do as part of the video subscription is people can send a video of them riding in. So maybe walk, trot, canter, stirrups, no stirrups from the side and from behind. And then I'll go through and kind of do a voice analysis talking about different points and highlight things and then direct them to which exercises are the best ones to do.
Oh, that is wonderful. So good to know. And that can be found on your website, right?
Yeah, that's on my website. And then, they're not, I want to say they're not lower level exercises, but I'm not a strength and conditioning person. I am not a fitness instructor. this is for people that are struggling or have maybe not exercised that much before, or kind of have noticed the difference left to right and want to work a bit more specific on it. So some of them are kind of Pilates type exercises. They do go to kind of functional squats and lunges and deadlifts, but I'd like to think that when they get to that point and they've got that, they then go and speak to somebody that is fitness trained. Hopefully by that point they're balanced and they're stronger and they're ready to go. But yeah, having worked in professional sports, I can do the strength and conditioning stuff. It's just not what I want to focus on with riders. There's plenty of other people that are more qualified than me for that.
Totally get that. If you could have a wish list of things you'd want all riders to focus on, let's say top 3, what would they be?
So my top 3 things I tend to work with riders would be, I want them sitting in a neutral pelvic position. And there's quite a few people that say, it doesn't matter if you're an anterior and posterior tilt. And as a physio, we don't matter. We know that research says that you're not going to have more back pain or hip pain if you're in a certain posture. But we also know for riders that if you're sitting in a non-neutral position, you can't move the same way with a horse. You can't have that weight over the centre of gravity over the horse as one. You're going to change something. And whatever happens at the pelvis, to me, it's a bit of a fulcrum. If your pelvis tilts forward, your upper body goes forward, your lower leg goes back. If your pelvis tilts back, your body tips back, your legs tip forward. And then gripping and things starts to happen so we don't fall off the horse. But if we can get that neutral pelvic position, we can then kind of work above and below it quite easily. And it's something that I think a lot of people don't realise what neutral is, or actually the importance of it. That probably is the first thing I try and get through to riders when I see them. And it's probably a big thing I try and push with on social media, of actually looking at the difference in riders' movement. Because if you can't sit in neutral, then you haven't got that control of your seat. The second thing I probably look at is the ball of the foot. And again, it's another quite big one that I'm quite passionate about. Riders ride on their toes a lot of the time. And in no other sport do we do that. And then the argument comes in as, well, you shouldn't have much weight through your stirrups. Doesn't matter, even if you're sitting down, maybe 20% goes into the stirrup when you're sitting. That's still 20% that you want to be balanced. If we look at gymnasts, divers, people that spend a lot of the time kind of on the ball of the feet, they know where their balance point is. And riders don't. They don't know where the ball of the foot is. They don't know what it should feel about. They don't kind of know why it's important. And the easiest thing I can get riders to do is get them standing on their toes on the stirrups, and they kind of push their heels down, their knee straightens, they're leaning forward, they're a bit unbalanced, and you change their foot position, they go, oh, that was easier. Yeah. Why are we making this harder for ourselves? And plenty of riders say, oh, I've been doing this for like 20 years and I haven't had problems. And that's great for you. Don't change it. I'm not saying you have to change it. But if you have a problem, maybe have a look at that first of all. So I think the pelvic position and the foot are the 2 big ones to me that I see the biggest changes when that starts to happen. And then the third thing is the shoulder hip heel alignment. And again, I'm saying this no different to what kind of riding instructors want to do. But if we can get that alignment and we can get the muscles working equally, everything's going to be so much easier for the rider and the horse.
Absolutely. I love those 3. Thank you for sharing those.
Yeah. And it's interesting when you kind of get some pushback from people that say, no, heels have to be down, or this has to be here, that's the way it's always been done. And you say, okay, can you explain it? Like, I'm open to ideas. Like, I'm not the expert. Like, I'm not the leading expert in rider biomechanics. I know a lot about stuff. It's been my job for 20 years, but ultimately other people have different opinions. But can you explain it? And they just can't. It's the way it's been. And then they start saying things that are actually almost untrue. So your heels need to be down to absorb the movement in your ankle. Okay, but if your heel's locked and your foot's locked, then you can't absorb the movement. Like, again, go back to a trampoline. You don't jump on a trampoline with your heels down. You absorb the movement in your foot. And all these little things that, you use other sports or other analogies. But I think riders have got, it almost feels a bit like Chinese whispers. That something was said for a reason like 50, 60, 100, 200 years ago. And it's been passed on to the next generation. And every generation it gets passed on to, the reason behind it kind of gets a bit lost or misinterpreted.
Absolutely. Yes, I've seen that a lot. And I'm always questioning things. Like, I'm like, well, when do the heels need to be down for real? Like, I think just when you're landing off a jump. But then after that, it should feel like a nice, just soft bouncing.
Really?
And it should feel like you're flowing and not jamming. Because if you're jamming, then your body's going to get tense, right?
Yeah. Or the other one is you lift your toes up. But again, as soon as you lift something up, you create tension in my head.
That doesn't feel good in my front of my calves.
No, and again, I think what's interesting, what I try and say to people is, just because that worked for you, and someone lifting their toes up might make them do the thing that we're talking about. And in their head, that's what they're trying to explain. But it's how you interpret an instruction. It's how you say things. What one person says will be something very different to another. And that's what I think is quite interesting in riding. One of the reasons I kind of got into the biomechanics side is I started taking up playing polo. And I learned by seeing, by doing, by analysing. That's just how my brain works. And I'd get polo instructors saying, well, just hit the ball. I'd be like, what do you think I'm trying to do? Like, do you think I'm trying to miss the ball? Like, do you think I'm trying to hit the ball badly? Can you break it down for me? Well, you just need to swing it. Oh, okay. And they couldn't break it down any further. Or they'd say, just imagine this. And I'd be like, it doesn't work for me. And again, I think I sometimes find that with instructors. And it's nothing against instructors, because they are amazing at getting the horses going better. But I think we sometimes forget that riders need a bit more instruction and breaking things down.
Yeah, I think the quality instructors are super creative and adaptable, and they understand, oh, this isn't clicking. I need to say something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember watching an instructor just keep going, leg yield, leg yield, leg yield, leg yield. And I'm watching, I don't think this student even knows what that means.
No, exactly. And I laugh, like sometimes when my riding coach says to me, heels down, I know that's because what she's telling me is that for me means I'm tensing slightly, and actually I need to go, oh, heels down. So it's not like I don't mind the instruction, but it's making sure that the instruction is the right thing for that person.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I'm not teaching people to ride. That's not my bag. I'm not a riding instructor. I watch what people are doing and then try and make them physically do it better.
You're literally like a rider mechanic. I love it. You're like tuning them up. That's super cool. If you could teach a masterclass for instructors, what would the topic be, and what kind of key elements would you share?
It's a really interesting one. I think we've probably covered quite a lot of it already, really. I think I just want them to listen to the rider. And again, although I'm a physio, I find that that's what I have to do. Like, the main diagnosis we get as a physio isn't from the physical examination, it's from the history. And it's been kind of shown in different research is that the first 2 minutes of a conversation are probably when you get the most information. So as a physio, or it should be as a kind of a doctor or anything in healthcare, you'd say, how can I help you today? And then you let that person talk. You let them talk until they run out of things to say. Because in that 2 minutes that they talk, you get the most information back. And that you then kind of go, now I can kind of direct the conversation. I can do a bit more closed questions, yes and no answers. And then I can do the physical objective examination and try and pinpoint what the diagnosis is. But the majority of it comes from that initial talking phase. And I think we forget that as riders. We tell people to do things, or we instruct, or we ask questions, but we don't necessarily say, what do you want to achieve? What are your goals? What are your problems? And if you actually listen to them, their problems, you might then find out that they do have that back pain that's probably limiting them in that maybe jumping, or they do have that ankle problem, which means that they're struggling to put weight on it. And you probably get to the solutions a lot quicker than just doing what you think they should do. And again, that's not every instructor. It's just, I think it's a different way of instructing. It's a different way of coaching. And from a physio background, the main thing is that conversation. It's that interpersonal relationship you have with your clients and patients. I think instructors could maybe just do a little bit better at that at times, of actually listening to the rider. I've got one rider that goes for sessions, and quite a nervous rider. And the instructor said, well, don't be nervous.
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no.
Oh, okay. That's an easy thing to do, isn't it? Just don't be nervous, or you'll be fine. And there's plenty of instructors like yourself that would break things down further. But I think if we could just treat riders as human beings at times and not as the person on top of the horse, that would be a really good thing.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I so agree with you, Jen. Thank you for sharing that. And my whole thing is, when I first have especially a brand new student, I'll tell them, listen, I'm not going to micromanage you. I'm just going to watch you ride for a couple minutes first. Then I'm going to ask you what you're feeling, and then what you feel in your horse. And then I always do that even with students I've been working with all the time. I'll say, is there something specific you want to work on? How are you feeling? How's the horse feeling? Because they might go, oh, well, today I tweaked my back. I'm like, okay, this is good to know. Thank you. Like, we need to have all this information, keep the conversation open and clear, and really listen deeply. I think that's so key. So I'm glad you said that.
I think the other thing would be is just because, so the other one I kind of is about like riding with no stirrups and bareback. I'm a huge fan of that at the right point in time.
Right.
If you can't sit in the saddle in the correct position and you haven't got the strength, or you're in pain, or you've got a problem, don't take someone's stirrups away. Don't take away the thing that's actually helping them at the moment, because that's the way you learn to ride. And I don't know where this kind of thing, we have to kind of treat riders a bit mean at times, like they have to go through these horrible experiences to get better, when that's not great for them and it's not great for the horse. And we can do different things, and that's why I find it fascinating when people get quite angry about mechanical horses, because they're mechanical horses, they're not real horses. I'm like, but surely learning to ride on that is better than bouncing around on a real horse. Like, why would that ever be a bad thing for horse welfare? It's just not a bad thing. But people think that just taking stirrups away and making someone get better is going to help. And I think we've kind of progressed from those days. Then we can kind of go, well, actually, is that going to be a useful exercise right now? Yes, let's do it. No, let's do something else and work towards it.
Yeah, and you have to think about, is that kind to the horse and is that kind to the rider?
Completely.
And if it's not, then you don't do it. Like, that's just not okay.
But I think it's still kind of quite prevalent in the horse world that you just have to do these things, that you just have to get through it. I did it, therefore you have to. That you have to be shouted at heels down or hands up, and you don't need to kind of try and break these down or be kinder.
Yeah. And
I did a video the other day talking about a rider's hands position. And again, it's really interesting on a real horse. I was like, why are you doing that with your hands? Like, you're doing this. Do you mean to do it? Are you struggling to maintain? Like, what are you thinking? And she'd been told to keep her hands down. Well, okay, there's no point me telling you to lift your hands up, because you're not going to do it because you don't see the benefit of it. So that's fine. We'll take a different thing. And someone commented on one of the videos saying, well, she just needs to lift her thumbs up and do this. And I was like, but you're missing the point of the post, which is all about understanding why they're doing it in the first place.
Right.
Yes, but this will help. And I'm like, no, I'm sure it will from a physical point of view, but you're missing the point that the rider isn't going to do it if they don't see the benefit and they don't understand why they're doing it, and they've been told to do something else. So you can scream at them till you're blue in the face to lift their hands up, but if they don't think that it's the right thing to do and they don't want to do it, they're not going to do it. But again, it's that thing of telling someone to do something rather than actually understanding, well, why are we doing that? And I think that's what's probably really interesting from some of the rider physio sessions. And I've got the luxury of using a simulator, so I can do silly exercises with bands and balls and get them to put them in positions that they wouldn't do on a real horse. And they go, oh, that makes sense. I can feel that. Well, there you go. It's little things like that make the big difference for the riders that come to my sessions, I think.
I love that so much. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you wanted to share?
The only one thing I want to do, and it's a little bit of a plug, but I'm not going to be ashamed about that, is from working on the simulator sessions, I found it really interesting using all the videos and photos that I had. And riders would come in wearing different types of clothes with stripes and spots and different things on. And I'd show them a video and they'd be like, oh, I can see that. Without me even pointing out, they could see that line was off or this colour was doing different things. And so I've created a kind of a biomechanics top and bottom. And the idea is that riders can see what they're doing. Because you must find it when you say to somebody, and riding instructors all around the world will be saying, you're doing this, the rider goes, okay, but they don't really believe you. Or they might take a photo or look at the mirror, and their brain is telling them what they want to see or what they think they should see, not actually what they're seeing. And again, from my physio background, you have someone that's had a broken leg and they're standing like 75% on one leg, 25% on the other, and they feel balanced. Look at the mirror. Are you standing up straight? Yep. Equal weight? Yep. What about your hips? Yep. I'm standing up straight. Okay. Take a photo, draw some lines. Oh, I'm not standing up straight at all. No, you're not. And they can't see it. So the idea of these closers was that people can then start to see it themselves. So I launched it last week at the National Equine Show. And what was fascinating was people put the tops on, got on the saddle, and I took a photo and they went, oh, wow, look at that. They could see it straight away. And I was like, if you can see it, you can start to fix it. And what was hilarious was quite a few mothers and daughters there. And the mothers were like, I've been telling her for ages that she's doing this. And we put the top on and I'd show the picture and the daughter would be like, oh, I can see that. Okay, I see what you mean now. And I was like, there you go. You just need that extra little bit of help and that visual feedback. And kind of, again, I get people on the simulator and their shoulders are drifting back. And I'm like, can you see that? I'm like, yeah, yeah, and I'm like, you can't see that at all. We put the top on, I'm like, look at that blue line, look at that line. They're like, oh, and straight away they correct it. Almost to the point when they look in the mirror, they don't even go back as bad as they were because their brain's telling them they can see the straight lines. They're like, oh, well, why do I want to be here? They straight away correct themselves. So the idea of the tops are, it isn't something that you get every so often for a biomechanics lesson. It goes back in the car for the next 3 months and gets a bit mouldy. It's a top that you wear when you're training. It's technical material. You can go for a hack in it, and your friend behind you can go, oh, you're looking a little bit wonky there. And because it's got so many different lines and up and downs and across, the rider then knows what they're doing. They've seen it from their photos or their video analysis or the mirrors. And then when they're doing that riding, they can think, oh, I need to lift that pink line up, or I need to kind of be able to see that pink line or get that logo turning inwards. So they've got those kind of visual cues to start thinking about. And it's made such a difference for a lot of riders. So there's a top and joggers as well.
Oh my gosh, this is amazing. And are you shipping them internationally?
I am. So the first one that actually got sold went to Sweden. And then we've had them go to Spain, a couple to America. I think one was in New York, the latest one. And then last week one went to Australia.
Oh, I love this so much. This is amazing.
Yeah. But the idea is it should be worn, it's just normal riding wear. It's not something that's special. It's not, I'm having a biomechanics session. Because what I find in the UK is that people have these biomechanics clinics and they wear certain clothes. And the clothes are great, don't get me wrong. But then they don't wear them again because maybe they get too hot, or they're this or they're that, or they don't see the need, and actually it's quite specific to someone showing them. Whereas the idea of these clothes is that you're riding up to that mirror down the centre line, you can see what's going on. You can video yourself in the arena, go down the straight, see, oh, actually, my line's off a little bit. Okay, that's not how I'm feeling, but I'm trusting what I see. Therefore, I'm going to change it, video myself again. Okay, that looked better. So they get that real-time feedback of, it's not how it should feel, but I can trust what I can see.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. And I'm going to encourage all of my clients to get these now.
It's just something that you can wear. So because the material kind of wicks away your sweat, you can wear it whenever. And if it's cold, you put a base layer underneath. Like, there's no reason to not wear it at all times. Same with the jodhpurs. I laughed with one of them when I was kind of going through the product development. They've got sticky knee pads. Mm-hmm. I like a knee pad on the jodhpurs. And one of my clients was wearing them and was like, oh, but it's not got a sticky bum on. And we're going jumping like, I'm going to slide all over the place. So we purposely did jumping, and on the simulation, yes, she was sliding all over the place. I was like, you shouldn't be. Like, let's work on that.
Yes.
And we got her working properly by not having a sticky bum. So people go, oh, it's not got a sticky bum. But the reason being is we want you to work properly rather than relying on kind of friction.
Yes.
But no, all the riders have loved it so far.
Oh,
and they've really kind of helped them in their lessons. And it, nothing else, it helps instructors because you can clearly see whether it's in a dark arena, it's in a bright sunshine, you can see the lines clearly, whether you're doing flat work or jumping, you can see it straight away.
And you have a big variety of sizes, I think?
I do, yeah. So I'm just getting an extra small in the jodhpurs to kind of accommodate with slightly smaller people. So we're going to go from an extra small in jodhpurs, like a UK size 6'8", up to a UK size 16. And exactly the same in the top. What I've also got on the top is a double XS small, and that's for younger riders or petite riders.
Brilliant.
And that's actually what was really popular at the show last weekend. There was lots of younger riders getting it because they love the colours. It's pink and blue and grey. Like, what can you not like about those colours? And it's quite fashionable. It's quite trendy. It doesn't look like a biomechanics top, but they can see the benefit straight away. So the young riders are loving them as well.
That's so cool. Well, I'll definitely put all that info in the show notes, so anyone listening, definitely check it out.
Yeah, as I said, ship to anywhere.
I love it. Okay, one last question for you, Jen. If we were to put a big billboard, an advertisement up for the whole horse world to see, what would you want it to say?
Look after yourself, and that will help you look after your horse. I think people forget about themselves. I know riders that kind of eating baked beans on toast, which I'm not sure if you have that in the States, but it's kind of like a cheapish meal. And they're doing that so they can get paid for that vet bill or get the regular physio or chiropractor or get that new thing for the horse and make sure the farrier comes every 6 weeks. But they just don't spend money on themselves because they think it's a waste of money, that they're not important, and they are just as important, if not more important, than the horse because they affect them so much.
Totally agree. Wonderful. Jen, thank you so much for all of your insights. I really, really loved having you on the podcast.
It's been amazing. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Well, listeners, thank you again. If you enjoyed this, please do write a review. And remember to lead with kindness for yourself and for your horse. And may the horse be with you always.